Hey, everybody, welcome back. This episode will be an interview of me by James to some extent. James,
How's it going? That's my
uh,
first question for you.
it's going well. We were talking before the podcast about just being tired. Daylight savings time just happened at the time of this recording, and I have a long-standing belief that that's possibly one of the worst governmental uh, governmental interventions into the fabric of reality. You shouldn't mess with that stuff because I don't like being tired.
That's a good argument. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We were thinking kind of taking the last 3 episodes were quite strenuous, a little more conceptual, and I realized you guys kind of know my story but we haven't heard Ian's story yet. So I thought maybe this would be a good time to kind of go more into experiential things, um, explore, question, and investigate Ian's life and gain insight from there. So, yeah, so that's what this episode's going to be about. Just Ian sharing his story.
Yeah, man. So it all started in a hospital in Rochester, New York.
Nice,
No.
nice, nice.
Um,
We both,
yeah,
we both
had to
make
bring it back. Yeah.
the lame joke.
um, yeah, no. So I do want to start in uh childhood because I think some of the formative years is pretty typical biographical technique. Um, but for where this story kind of winds itself, I feel like it is an important factor to start in my childhood. I was raised in a Christian family, which is um, much to my benefit. At the time, of being a kid, it was sort of a lot of good things that were taken for granted. My parents are happily married, and they uh, treated us well and cared about our well-being and in all of its various capacities. So that was nice. And they homeschooled all of us. Well, there's 2 or 3 left to finish homeschooling. I have 5 siblings, so 6 kids, and, big family, by modern American standards, and not really in the homeschooling community, though. We're kinda lame, like, "Oh, we have twice as many kids as you guys." But, yeah, and it was not a weird homeschooling family, no offense to anybody, but, that
I think that's what
sort of
every
needs to be
homeschooling
clarified.
family says, though.
No, no, no.
We were
No,
like those
some
weird
of them
homeschoolers.
some of them wear it as a badge of honor, and that's when you know it's for sure weird. Um, but yeah, so we just didn't go to school. My parents, like you have to report to the state in New York, so there's a lot of like mandatory classes and whatever. But I think progressively as I grew older, my mom learned more about like unschooling, letting us pursue passions as a means of like motivating education. And so, yeah, so I grew up doing a lot of various things. When I was 13, I started working on a farm. I won't say the name just in case that's illegal, which I think it is. But
Nice.
uh, yeah, so I was working full time at that point. I kind of skipped ahead though. I in the younger years of growing up, I think I wanted to highlight the fact that my parents say that I was not great at saying like yes mom or yes dad. That was a phrase that was sort of like when we say stuff for you to do, then you can respond by saying I'll do it, you know? And I was not good at that. I'm still not really good at that. Sort of have a knee jerk reaction to question, investigate, and then explore. And I I think that is like a good part of who God made me to be. But it's hard to be parented with that sort of in you. You know, like it's hard for like people say that I have leadership qualities and all of these things, and for a long time I definitely like shirked the responsibility of that, but then also sort of abused the maybe tendencies of a leader to, um, uh, you know, question the way things are being run, and it's way easier to do that if you don't have the responsibilities. And so, like as I'm the oldest kid out of the six, and so I definitely was up against um, the like I felt that I was up against the brunt of my parents' parenting activity. It was like, uh, no, you can't do that. And that was all I ever heard. Not, I love you and I care about you and I want really good things for you in your life. And so, um, I feel like I grew up in a really, like a relatively healthy, home environment, and definitely took that for granted. I think about the way that, um, so many people that I know today, their parents are not even, um, not together, or it is not good that they are together. And uh, so yeah, there was really like a lot of stability, and we had a a nice, comfortable kind of middle class life. So I didn't have a lot of struggle early on in my life to sort of clarify my thinking about a lot of things. The struggles were mainly just against authority, sort of, first world, um, teenage, angsty type of struggle that I usually brought on myself by contradicting literally the hand that fed me.
Yeah.
And so, uh,
Well, I did want to. I don't know if you're about to
yeah,
segue into like a next stage of life,
yeah, yeah,
but I think before we go into the next stage of life, I wanted to, because it's something I'm curious about too. Really, when it comes to education, a lot of times people don't recognize that education literally means to train in preparation for a job or to work. And there's a difference between education and study. And studying means to actually like it involves passion. Um, and so with your untraditional education and schooling, I wanted to explore what you meant by your mom doing the unschooling thing and allowing you to explore your passions and maybe what were some of those at the time.
yeah. So unschooling is, I think there was a book that's like titled that maybe. I haven't read it, but my wife has, and uh, I've read some stuff by John Taylor Gatto. There's also some Socratic method schools that are, I don't want to say popular, but they're gaining traction, sort of in opposition to public schooling, which in America is pretty tragically bad. Like 50% of high school graduates are illiterate. Like, uh, this is anecdotal, but my brother works at Taco Bell and as the general manager, and he interviewed his just one shift, so four people at Taco Bell, because somebody misspelled the word sauce, and 4 out of 5 people spelled it with an S instead of a C in the second S sound. And so that's just a good example, in my opinion, of like people not knowing how to spell. There are conditions that legitimize that, but then also like, um, I feel like that's a pretty good indicator that we might be not doing the right thing as a society. Although I will say Taco Bell might not be the best sample size.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
um, but anyway, so the idea of unschooling is that, um, in real life, like in a traditional setup, it would be anything maybe 18 years old and beyond. Like once you get out of high school, that's when we pivot to real life. I think a lot of people would contend that even college is set up in such a way that like it's kind of limiting people's potential. Like if you got out of high school at 18 and started a business, you'd learn a lot more, at least this is what people say, uh, about business by running it than by going to get your MBA. So,
Mhm.
um, it basically centers on the idea that you if you want to accomplish something, like you actually want to accomplish it, then whatever's in your path that obstructs your ability to, or even if it's just your lack of ability to accomplish what you want to accomplish, then you will energetically and passionately approach the problems in order to learn how to solve it. And so, when it comes to typical education, you're presented with information that you're supposed to memorize essentially,
Mhm.
and almost independent of context. I was going to say like regardless of context, and by that I mean, you know, common refrain in school is like, "Why are we learning this?" You know, and I think for a lot of people, like higher level math, unless you're interested in a field that uses that, you're not going to really need to learn that, you know? And so maybe a moderate version of this would just be in the curriculum, but unschooling is based on the idea that like science and math overlap, but so does English and science and math, and so does history and English and science. And all of these things are separated out into different classrooms and different subjects. And John Taylor Gatto talks about the way that like the school bells are designed to interrupt the subject, indicating that it's not important. And that's kind of like demoralizing to do for 12 years of your life in order to become educated. Um, and I guess like for me, the benefit of unschooling in you asked about like what that meant for my mom and how it happened in my childhood. I it was more in my teen years, but I was interested in um auto mechanics. I can't remember exactly what sort of led into that. I think I have a bit of an engineering tilt to me, from my grandfather, and even my dad is like a web designer, just a different form of engineering. But so I got into an auto shop through family connections and did sort of like a an apprenticeship. So that was really cool. I don't remember all of it because it was a long time ago. But I definitely learned how to change brakes and change oil, rotate tires, balance tires, all that stuff. And so that was a really cool experience that I would never be afforded at, a 7 to 3 or 8 to 3 type school, when your whole day is taken up. And then you're also like, uh, you've got homework when you get home or sports or whatever. In sports, I played plenty of sports, through various homeschool channels and town leagues and stuff like that. But that's one example. I also wrote a lot when I was a kid, which I still love to do, and, but I wrote fiction, and so, I wrote like a 100,000 word book. I could probably cut out 75,000 of those words if I was really trying to make it good, but, I, I never would have had that opportunity, just based on, like just think about, like, I like to play sports. I like to watch TV. I like to play video games. I like to hang out with my friends like any normal person. And so if the bulk of my day is spent memorizing, which, we can get into the weeds about like how that is maybe not the best way to learn anyway, but if I'm spending 80% of my day doing something like that, when I get out, it's not like I'm going to go uh, do something constructive. All my energy has been used sort of in that space of time. So, um, yeah, so those are examples. I also was able to work a lot, which was that allowed me to play some of the sports. I played hockey, and it's pretty expensive. And at the time, my parents didn't have the money to pay for that, so I paid for it, and um, yeah, so that was like another opportunity, and I guess that might be controversial to some people that I was, like, working and not whatever, being educated, but, um, yeah, lots of time to read, pursue things that I was into intellectually. I, uh, I was really into, like, theater and not not actually into theater, but it was a like, performing arts, and so, I actually was really into stand-up comedy and, like, TV shows, big fan of The Office growing up, and so, I kinda wanted to write a TV show, or that was, like, my version of, well, I'd really like to be in the TV show, but, probably not good enough, so I'll just write the TV show, but obviously that's very hard to do too, and so I I made a sketch comedy group, in high school also, and I feel like that's another example of, like, something I was able to do, because I had a lot of free time. It doesn't take that long to cover all the necessary, requirements, like for history, math, science, English, and so, yeah, you just knock that stuff out and then move forward with your life. And in school, there's an element of like uh childcare. So it's like, yeah, well, the agreement is you get out at 3, but really we hope you stay until 4, but really we hope you stay until 5. And I didn't have to deal with any of that. So as soon as I was done with whatever I had to do for the state or my mom, she had different curriculums we were working through. Then I was able to move forward into whatever I cared about. So,
Was your mom stay at
and
home? Stay at home mom?
yes, yep.
That's sweet.
Yeah, so we were single income, single car family pretty much all growing up. Just recently, my parents got a truck for their farm. They moved in like maybe 8 years ago, uh, to like a farm property in a different town. We grew up in Palmyra, New York, which is where Mormonism was invented, which is fun.
So I was gonna make the joke of
Um,
why all the other homeschool kids had a lot more bigger
yes,
families.
yes, got to populate a planet somehow. Yeah.
That's right. You gotta save those soul babies, spirit babies. That's what they say.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
Um, yeah. No offense to our Mormon listeners. Um, uh, and yeah, so yeah, growing up, mom stayed at home. She started like reselling books and doing stuff on the side more recently because she likes to find a good deal and then flip it for profit. Um, yeah. Does that
So that
answer
covers
your
the
question
basis
about unschooling?
of the the unschooling was certainly, and then the passions that because you said you had intellectual pursuits as well. What were some things that
Oh
were
yeah.
shaping
Well,
your view on the world? You know that you personally jived with.
yeah. Well, I I hadn't really thought about that. I was initially prepared to say I have nothing like James, which is like cool philosophical like considerations, but I think that a lot of what I believed came from uh stand-up comedy, which sounds dumb, but like I was really into it. And it's a really cool, it's kind of like music or whatever. Like you can get really deep into the history of it, and Joe Rogan certainly played a role in communicating the illustrious history of stand-up comedy, Lenny Bruce and all those guys, the Catskills guys, and so it's really fascinating to me. And I think deep down, it's because they tell the truth in a communal way. It's really, yeah. I'm still interested in comedy, but at the time, it was sort of like an just like an untrammeled, like the depths and filth of the world, like, uh, into my sort of mind at a very formative time. And I guess this is a good time to introduce it. It's sort of a weird juxtaposition, but like one of the most formative things that ever happened in my life was discovering pornography at the age of 9. And uh, I used to think that that was pretty young, but now the numbers are like 6 years old, 7 years old,
Wow.
and so that's, like, really tragic because I know how deeply that shaped me, and it definitely drove a wedge between my parents. Like, I was talking about how, as a kid, I didn't, like, agree with my parents in immediately or maybe naturally, and that's sort of, like, the way that I was built, but then that was exacerbated by this, um kind of shameful divide between things that I knew my parents stood against, but then I was like pretty much uh, for pornography, and even just like all the jokes that my favorite comedians were making about various things. Like, uh, you can find any joke about like some anti-God perspective, or a, like how dumb is this old-fashioned way of thinking, or um, sexual humor that sort of is like, uh, it's just not handling things in a real world kind of way. Um, and so that the pornography, uh, like rapidly grew into an addiction. And so it was basically like, not, I don't want to say impossible, but it was definitely like compulsive. And so then, there was no, um, it wasn't just like optional, like, oh yeah, whatever my parents say, I'll just go ahead and choose to do that. It was more like, no, they're pretty much wrong about that. And I was definitely justifying a lot of my behavior. Um, and then there was this whole like, I don't want to call stand-up comedians a community, but I think I did think of it as like a community of people that were like, oh yeah, isn't it funny? Like that this happens when you have sex. And of course, I have no idea what I'm even talking about. Just some like messed up 9-year-old version of what I think that sex is at the time. And then yeah, I kind of like latched on to this alternative community because um we definitely had a lot of friends and people in our life. That's one thing that people think about homeschooled children, is that they're unsocialized. But that wasn't true for my family. Like, we were very friendly, hospitable, and so there were always people over for dinner, and friends that we'd hang out with, go to the park with, whatever, um, and play sports with. So I definitely had people around me, but there was this allure to having my own community. Like, yeah, these people, they all have their thing. They really love Jesus and God and doing quote unquote the right thing. But then I'm, you know, separated from all of that in my duplicitous lifestyle from a young age of like, no, no, I don't watch porn. I do all the right things. No, I'm just like you guys. And then really, I'm like, no, you guys are actually idiots. I actually know way more cool stuff about everything than you do. And that's a dangerous thing for someone like me, because I enjoy being right. I take great pride in using my mind to figure something out and do it well. And I definitely fell prey to pride from a young age, thinking that they all had it wrong, but I had it right. Because, the Bible says sin is pleasurable for a time. And uh, yeah, so it was like hard to argue uh, with the physical pleasure that everything that my parents and different adults in my life would say, "Oh yeah, that stuff's bad. Like, you don't want to do that." And it's like, well, like, bad how? Like, a lot of it's kind of, one day it might be, it might ruin your perception of women or whatever, and that 100% like happened to me. I struggled to treat women with the due respect that they deserved, and that was, I would say, exclusively because of pornography use. And so, um, yeah, so I at the time I couldn't see that far ahead to recognize the consequences of my actions. Um, yeah, so hopefully that wasn't too complicated, but because of that, I think I found a community that was like more supportive or accepting, or just like kind of like no holds barred. I definitely feel like my parents are great people. They're just like everybody else, I guess. Like, they have things that they're good at and things they're not good at, and things they did right and things they have not done right. But I generally, looking back, can appreciate, wow, yeah, they were really trying to do good things for me. But at the time, I was like every little thing would bother me, like, oh yeah, we're not gonna watch that movie. It's got some objectionable content, or we're not interested in that type of thing, and uh, you shouldn't listen to that type of music, and all that stuff just rubbed me the wrong way. Like, well, how do you know? Like, you don't even listen to it, And actually, I want to read this quote because I feel like this part of my life, uh, and it is this quote captures sort of something about me that was so difficult to put in the right place in this part of my life. It's from a furniture designer named Eileen Gray, and it's on Thinking for Yourself. She says, "To create, one must first question everything. Never adopt someone else's conclusion without putting it to the test of your own reasoning and imagination." Um, and I think that a part of me agrees with that still, because you don't want to just parrot what other people have to say, especially if you're creative. And um, I am creative, and that's a good God given part of me. But when it gets preyed on by pride and sin, it can lead to this division between me and the wisdom of my parents, and then my community and my culture. Uh, and I definitely was divided. I did not accept any of the wisdom. And then I was sort of like building things from first principles. And um, that's okay to think from first principles, but like you have to uh it's like you giving the devil his due, that's fine, but you have to also give God his due as well. And I think I just I skipped that part. And so it leads into the next phase. But yeah. Anything to clarify there?
Yeah, I mean, it even sounds like that reoccurring refrain throughout Judges and even Kings too, that they did what was right in their own eyes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just the dangers of that. Um, I think I like the way that you articulated that of um, starting from first principles, and yeah, the how like the best lies are half truths. Like
Mm.
what you just described with that quote was like, yeah, that's really true, but that's not the full picture. Like it's missing the super crucial
Well,
element. Uh,
she's talking about making furniture, so like go for it.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that, of
yeah.
course that's the way to make furniture. But
Yeah. But I mean, I
yeah.
think that's even the expression of the culture too. Is just like, yeah, man, like whatever's holding you back from your potential, um, just disregard it. Um,
Mhm.
whatever's keeping you from being able to express yourself genuinely and fully, throw it off and then explore. Freedom. That's
Yeah.
the culture's cry of what freedom is, and really,
Yeah.
it's a yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that I was thinking of other influences at the time, because like not everything that I was influenced by growing up, sort of as evidenced by, I don't know, that like what I've become in my life. I did have a transformation recently, like 4 years ago, when I committed my life to Jesus. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Mhm.
And but like I've definitely reverted, not in a, I don't know, not in like an unthinking way, but I've definitely like had a lot to fall back on. Like, oh yeah, I remember my parent. It's not even like conscious. Oh yeah, this is a lot of stuff that people in my community believe in. So there's like I almost hesitate to say it, because it's like I feel as though I'm not relying on myself, but as I'm telling this story, it kind of occurs to me, it's good. It's good that I have all this stuff to fall back on, because I don't have to start from ground zero.
Mhm.
I have the foundation my parents laid, and the wisdom from a lot of different people uh, throughout my childhood that I can kind of go back to. I'm like, it's not brand new to me, which
Yeah.
has its challenges, but it has its benefits too.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say is like, um, we're from a small town in Western New York, and so Uh, there's people of different political affiliations, but like pretty much everybody in the Christian homeschooling community is going to be fairly red Republican and conservative, particularly. And so, um, what I want to say about that is that I had a lot of like, um, you know, influence in that direction. I like podcasts back then. I would listen to um, like Glenn Beck and stuff like that, and I
Mm.
guess he's whatever, but just like uh, the the idea that the Constitution is important and free speech and some of that Daily Wire stuff that's kind of come to the surface now was starting then when I was young and on the internet. And so, what I mean by that is like transgender and everybody, supporting the LGBTQ community. And so, a lot of that was in the zeitgeist as I was like I was bringing it up because you were mentioning like that's what the culture is talking about. And so I was on the other side of most of those issues, almost sort of like a kid, like, oh yeah, is this what we think about this? Like I'm trying to judge the adult conversation around me. Um, but I still to this day have a much more like libertarian bent because basically I don't believe in people telling other people what to do.
Yeah.
and,
What to
and
believe.
and yeah, and definitely not right, definitely not that. And so as with all of this stuff, it's like I don't ever want to look back at when I was so lost and purposeless and meaningless and like I wasn't, but that's how I felt. Um and just disregard every aspect of it. There's a lot of baby in that bathwater. And so it's like
Mhm.
um, that libertarian desire for freedom was sort of like misconstrued in my own mind. Like I'm misconstruing it uh, as the freedom to do whatever, to be yourself, to
Yeah, you
and
still had
so
morals, yeah.
right, yeah, um, yeah, and so I think we can move forward in the story. I just kind of had like that was the story of high school for me is just like basically I didn't really have any outlets because I had mostly positive influences around me, curses, like I didn't have anyone to um like give me drugs or alcohol and so it just kind of generally watch TV shows that my parents didn't like, and I was addicted to pornography, and I'd like, uh, I had a bunch of relationships with different girls to varying degrees in high school, um, and all those things were countercultural to my culture, and but consistent with maybe what I thought other people were doing, or and again, it was all very natural because I think the culture shows us or tells us that whatever you desire can be fulfilled if you just, you know, don't believe the Bible. It's not even that specific. If you just don't care what other people think about it, if you just don't think about the consequences, like who cares about what happens tomorrow? Think about you today and what you want. And so that was definitely something that I grabbed a hold of, and I was like, "Yeah, I think I want stuff," and, uh, I would just try to find every different way um, to get that, and then, I guess, like, fast forward to I'm graduating high school, and this also there were a lot of good times, like, I won a couple flag football championships, a hockey championship, there were plenty of good times, and it wasn't all bad with my family either, but definitely uh, ideologically, we're definitely living in two different spaces. They were talking about living a real life relationship with Jesus kind of life, and I didn't know what that meant. There was a point, maybe when I was 15, I was like, I don't really think I'm a Christian because I don't think any of this stuff and I don't act according to it. And that was weird because I like they prayed before every soccer game I played, and they, you know, we would like even at my homeschool theater company, I put a lot of effort into that, and that was like those were my people in high school, and they prayed before every practice and stuff, and there was even worship music, which was like agonizing, and uh, it just was so meaningless to me. Like none of it had any significance. And so then, yeah, there was a point I was like, "Yep, not a Christian," and that was weird because everybody's a Christian around me. So it was kind of like coming out. I don't know anything about that, but that's
Sure
what
you don't. No.
it feels like.
Sorry.
um,
It's too easy. Low hanging
um,
fruit. I'm sorry.
yeah. So, I definitely made that split somewhere there, 15, 16, something like that. And then when I was 18, um, we moved to that new house that my parents have, um, and there's a little, like tiny house on the property. It used to be an Airbnb or a regular B&B, a bed and breakfast. And so it was like perfectly set up, for somebody to live in it. I was like, "Hey, can I rent that from you guys?" And it probably wasn't even that respectful. "Hey, I'm renting that from you." And I did that, and so that was kind of a cool separation, at the time, like, I'd been living in their house and just kind of like, I feel like I'm an adult person. I have no idea what that means, and, that felt like a big step forward in that way, taking autonomy, uh, yeah, gaining autonomy in my life and, being able to, like, make some decisions. I'd finally found some people that would, like, get me alcohol, and I think probably some of my friends had turned 21, something like that, and, so it was like I was able to start making the decisions that I had always thought I wanted to make growing up, and so I started to do that, and, like, I don't know, just, like, living life, playing video games, playing sports, still being a kid, but working a full-time job. I didn't go to college I have still yet to go to college, but I definitely didn't go out of high school. So I just got a job I had different jobs, but eventually I got a job at a factory and I was doing stand-up comedy at the time. I recently started doing that and loving it because it was like, I'm doing it. I'm like a part of this community that I've kind of idolized for so long, and uh, I was doing that, and then I took the A shift at a factory, so it was like 5 to 1 p.m., 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. I had to get up at 4:30. Really, I had to get up at 4, but I would pretty much just roll out of bed and go to work, and um, it was not a good fit. I talked about being creative and stuff before. That environment is so demoralizing for me. Like, you can do it, more power to you. I really think it's bad for the human soul, but I was ground down there. And so it was also probably like depression from not having any responsibility in my life, not trying to be a good person, just trying to do what I wanted all the time. But it definitely was a grind and not in a good way towards really anything with purpose. So it's like this money allows me to pay rent so that I can do my stupid hedonistic desires in my tiny house next to my parents and uh, and theoretically pursue a career in comedy. And so I wanted to do that, the career in comedy part, but I didn't want to do the factory. But anyway, so I did that for a while, and then it just became too much because the I'm out until you know midnight or 1 o'clock with the drive, and then I'm waking up at 4. So half the time I'd be late, and there was like penalties for being late. So if you were late 7 times, I think, or maybe 14 times, like you get half a point or something. There was some point system. 7 points, you're out. So it got down to it, and I was. This is a fun story. I'll tell it quickly because it's not germane per se to the whole thing. But I was listening to the Pat McAfee show, which was originally Heartland Radio, and it was right when he signed with Barstool, so years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, and it was, exactly what I wanted to do. I love sports and I loved comedy. They were all stand-up comedians or friends of Pat McAfee that were on that podcast, and so I was like, "Dude, I am so perfect for this job." Like, completely delusional, but I was like, I'm just gonna drive there and maybe he'll give me a job. It's way better than working in this factory." And so I found out where the office was like a stalker and drove to their front door, and I knocked on the door. The secretary girl came out, and she was like kind of a part of the show in different ways. And so like I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's I did it. I'm here." And so she came out, and uh it was awkward because I'm like, "Hey, I just was wondering if I could, like, ask Pat if I could work here." And, she's like, "He's actually on the radio, like, Sirius XM right now, so maybe at 1?" So it was, like, in the morning, and, I was like, "Alright, yeah, I'll come back." And start walking back, and then she calls back to me. She had, like, gone inside, she came back out, calls back, "Hey, come back. He wants to interview you right now." I was like, "Oh, weird. Okay." I go in, I'm like in the office. Whoa, this is everything I've ever dreamed of. I'm walking into the studio area. It's all the guys, Pat McAfee. These guys are like legends to me at the time. They weren't even that big, but I I thought they were. And so I get in there, they're in the break, and he's like, "Hey man, what the heck?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm from New York and I just drove here because I was like, I really love what you guys are doing and I want to be a part of it." And he's like, "Well, that's crazy. And I'm going to do your job interview for the next segment." So he sat me down, and I was a lot like live on Sirius XM, and he's just asking me about life. And um, it was the opening day of baseball season, so we talked about that a little bit. And then he liked that segment, so he had me do jokes for the end of every segment with news topics. So I wrote different things. Um, uh, there was yeah, whatever. There was a joke about DMX, but I don't
You
want to
gotta
say
tell.
it.
You gotta
So
tell. Actually, I like the
okay,
joke. Tell
okay.
it.
Um, so it was the day that DMX went to or got arrested for tax evasion, and so I said, "X gonna give it to you unless it's tax money," and
I
and
like it.
so that killed. They were all DMX people, so they loved it. And there was something else about I don't know. I don't remember any of the other ones. So the it all went well, and we gambled on baseball and ate Burger King, and I was like, "This is crazy." So then at the end of it, uh, McAfee's like, "Listen, man, we can't pay you anything, but I'd love to have you on, and we'll find something for you to do." And I was like, "Dude, this is incredible. I'll move here. Give me a month." And basically, in the span of that month, uh, they were severing ties with Barstool, and it didn't pan out because he basically cut all of his interns. And so that was really demoralizing because it was so positive, like, "Wow, it worked out. It's happening. I'm doing the thing." And they even like gave me a stand-up spot, so they knew the guys in the area because they were all comedians, and they were like, "Yeah, yeah, go check out this show. I'll talk to this guy Ray, and he'll put you on." And so I got to do a spot there. It didn't go well, but I did it, and that was the important thing. So, um, yeah, I was like, I guess I'm moving to Indianapolis and this is where my life is taking me and I'm finally accomplishing my dreams. And then bam, I got disappointed when he was like, "Yeah, I'm not hiring any more interns. So best of luck," that kind of thing. And uh, I was stuck at the box factory, and that basically I just tanked. So I was depressed and didn't show up for work. And then I had like taken 2 points to go to Indianapolis, so I was at the limit, and they gave me the warning meeting, and then I was fired. And then I went back to a different job that I had before. I was just working there. I was like, this is dumb. Why am I doing this? I should be doing like what I'm trying to do. If I'm saying that I should, like, I'm going to be a comedian, then I should go do that. And uh, so I had a dream for a long time to go to Chicago to do Second City because I liked SNL and, like all the great comedic actors from the past. A lot of them have done some form of improv and then some form of SNL or I don't know, like Comedy Central level fame. And to some extent, these are all like delusions of grandeur. Like you can do that and have absolutely no success in your career whatsoever. But the people that do it and do have success are kind of like, they're extremely exceptional people. But I was like, I don't know. It seems like kind of the career path. So might as well mix it up. So, long story short, not really, but
Mm.
moving ahead, I packed up and moved to Chicago. And yeah, it was pretty disastrous from the start. I told my parents that I got an apartment because they were like, well, actually, I told them I found a hostel that will let me live there for like $9 a day that I can definitely get into. It's an Airbnb, and they were like, that sounds like a really bad idea. It was, and, I did it anyway and, like, told them it was an apartment, "No, different place," and, just moved out there, and so, yeah, got a bunch of stuff stolen from me. I live with totally weird people constantly, and, like, you know, they weren't homeless because they had $9 to spend on a room, um, but they could have been, if
Yeah.
it if they didn't have
Just
$9 that
happened that
day,
they had
so
$9. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, very, very rough crowd. And I met some cool people. Yeah. There, I had a friend named Nasir uh from Saudi Arabia, and he was working on his college degree, like his doctorate, in like his MD, and he was going to go back to Saudi Arabia, be a doctor, and have two wives and two families. That was his plan. Um, and we would, what's that? What's the thing they smoke? Andrew
Hookah?
Tate smokes it too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we would smoke hookah on the front porch, and uh there was a guy named Larry who's from Canisius actually, which is like a town near where I'm from. And he was just an alcoholic guy. He's like 6'5", big old 65-year-old dude. And he was a bouncer at a lot of bars. And we'd like drink disgusting 211. You know about that Steel
Uh-uh.
Reserve? Ugh, so gross. But it's beer, so they say. And we drink that and smoke weed. So these were all my friends who also, you know, did whatever was right in their own eyes. And uh, yeah, so I got plugged into the comedy scene there, just doing open mics as best I could, and I started taking classes at Second City, which is very different than being in Second City. There's a serious divide between the people that are on stage at Second City, that's like actual performers who have been working really hard for a long time and that are very excellent at what they do, and then taking classes. Literally anyone can do that, and so it was a bit of a, I don't know what you'd call that. Sort of like a bait and switch, like, "Oh, I'm doing it at Second City." But it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be.
I have no clue
Um,
what Second City is.
it's I think it's a nickname for Chicago, but it's a improv comedy empire. It's very famous. All really a lot of the SNL cast over the years have come from there.
Oh, okay.
Like all of the OGs, Bill Murray, both Belushi's, uh, Chevy Chase, etc. Some of the guys, um, I can't remember. Sorry, a lot of them have gone through there. And so there's all these pictures on the walls of these like legends, and it's like, oh my god, I'm gonna be the next one,
Yeah, yeah.
And and so yeah, so I did have friends there. at Second City. I definitely, growing up in my rural Western New York area, had very like vastly different political opinions, and everyone was very, properly liberal and in the way that comedy was at the time. So this would have been like 2017, 2018, and it was very like politically correct is sort of like not doing it justice. It was social justice warriors masquerading as comedians. And so there was a major divide between me and what I thought comedy was and the people that I was trying to do comedy with. Um, and so that was definitely like I didn't ever gain traction in the improv community, but I had a lot of fun doing stand up because you can say pretty much whatever you think because it's just you. You're speaking for yourself. I did get booed several times, not for the well, partially because the comedy sucked, but then also because I just had different opinions about what was going on. And
Wow.
so, uh, yeah, yeah, but I found, like, an underground kinda scene that was, it wasn't, like, conservatives, it was just, like, people that didn't care about that stuff, and so I enjoyed myself there, and then all through this, I was working at restaurants, that was pretty much my community, like, we just go out drinking every night, and that's how the bonds formed. They also stopped
And
when
how
I
old are you
stopped
during
doing
this
that.
time now?
I was 19 and 20.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Yeah, there's several funny stories about, like, everybody being able to get into the club, but me. I had, like, a fake ID that was from somebody else. So it was another guy that would go in line before me, and then me holding his ID. I was
Nice.
like, "I gotta go before you, man. Like, you gotta let me they're gonna recognize you." Um, anyway, yeah. Lots of dumb stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, so to sum it up, like, this time was my freedom was granted to me because I didn't have a community that knew who I was or even cared who I was. Um, so it was just kind of generally assumed, yeah, we all go drinking, we all sleep with different people, we all, uh, do drugs, whatever. And um, I was like, I did it. I found a group of people that finally think that this is how life works, and this is how I think life works. So it's kind of like synergistic, like in Christianity, I was always fighting against like I don't think that is right. I think that you know what I want to do is more important than what the Bible is saying. Like, why do I care what the Bible is saying? Because my parents say that I should. I just I'm gonna take this one head on and try to figure it out.
Use some
And
imagination.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like try something new,
Yeah.
create a different path
Which I mean,
forward.
yeah, isn't
Eh,
even necessarily bad. And in fact, it's exciting. Like that's part of the adventure of your life too, is to like cultivate that
yes.
aspect of being a human being. Is like I can be imaginative and creative, but it's when it's without restraint. That's the
Yeah, and literally completely without restraint. And I've learned since then that has a lot to do with community, which I knew at the time because in my own community, I would never go out like it's kind of like I don't know, like bars are spread out. You can't like walk to them or Uber home or anything like that, not easily anyway. So,
especially in
and then I
Chicago. I
didn't
would imagine
have
it'd be kind of
absolutely it
yeah.
was. Um yeah, and so yeah, like public transportation, all of this stuff. Uh And so not only was everything, infrastructurally facilitating what I was trying to pursue, but there was no opposition whatsoever. Everybody's like, "Yeah, that's what you want to do? Great idea." Like,
Yeah.
some people are like, "Hey, maybe don't black out on the train." Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I even came up with that one after I did it,
Yeah.
like, um, and so right, but, like, even I'm throwing that away, but that's, like, kind of a part of this time in my life,
Hmm.
like, yeah, I'm going out without restraint, and then this is what it's leading to, like, I wake up south side of Chicago at the last stop on the train, I've gotta get off and get onto the other train, so I'm sitting there, and there's people, like, that are not in good shape, like, they are down bad. They're awake at 4 in the morning or
Just
high
night
before
crawlers.
anything on the
Yeah.
train. Yeah, exactly. And me. And I'm like, whoa, I don't think anybody from my improv class is doing this. Like, this is not good. And
Uncharted
so
territory.
yeah, I've definitely never been here before. I don't believe in evolution. It's like, uh, so yeah, like I would say that it was like scary. It was inconsistent with like what I wanted. I didn't want that, but what I wanted was sort of leading to that. And so I was
The
definitely
carrot and
learning the
stick.
pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I want to do whatever I want all the time. And so I'm gonna do that. Oh, I woke up on the south side of Chicago, freezing cold in the middle of the night, and I have to ride the train 3 hours back, to my house, probably 2 hours, and that sucks because it's 6 when I get there, and now I have to go back to work at 11. So that was bad. I didn't like that. But then, the next night comes around, I'm closing. All right, what are we doing? We're going to Weeds. That's the after work bar. And then when you get done with Weeds at a normal closing time, 1, 2 in the morning, it's like, well, maybe we should go to the 4 a.m. bar. Huh?
Still want to
Like,
hang out. We're still going, man. Like,
yeah,
I don't want to
6 drinks
stop. You
deep
don't
is
want to
like,
stop.
no, why would you wanna stop? And
Yeah.
so then you do the same thing again. Back-to-back nights on the train is not that's that raised some red flags, but of course, like, I don't know, I was kinda pot committed too, like, the idea that I wanted to be a comedian for my career was significant to me, and definitely, like, I definitely didn't wanna go home for any reason, like, not even just because I didn't wanna stop doing what I wanted to do, but just, like, I don't know. I'm gonna go back to work at the factory. I don't want to do that. I didn't have a lot of purpose there. So I did have some purpose found in my career. Um, it wasn't much of a like I didn't really make any money from it, but
You still have
the idea that
ambition. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And so yeah, so I did that, and basically it just continued to get worse. Which yeah, so like
Were you still live in the hostel, or
the
did you eventually get to like a
no, yeah, that's a good point. I did eventually, move out of there, not before my PS4 was stolen.
ah?
I I don't remember. I told somebody to stop eating my ramen noodles, and I think it was that guy. He was like a thug guy, kind of. I don't know. He thought he was a thug. No offense, if you're listening. And that would be crazy. See him in the comments.
still
uh
still going hard on the
just a
PlayStation
picture
4.
of him like playing the yeah. um yeah, and so I eventually was like, I got to get out of here. So there was an opening at some coworkers' apartment. One of the people dropped off their lease or stopped, moved out and left them hanging.
Hmm.
So they needed somebody to move in. So I covered that and then moved in with a different set of coworkers later. And so, yeah, so I made it work and had some good friends. Uh, and just I don't know. It kind of devolved from there. Like my comedy career tailed off in that I was not even like getting up on stage. I wouldn't write because I was drinking too much. I wouldn't have the confidence to go up because I hadn't been up. It's like going to the gym. Like when you're in it and it's a habit, it's easy. Even if you're gonna do bad, you're like, okay, I'm getting better. I know I can do this. I didn't really have a strong comedy community around me, so like it wasn't like mentors or hey, maybe you should focus more on this or so it was like hard to see my progress. It really was only like 18 months in Chicago anyway, and maybe a year before that. So 2.5 years of experience is basically nothing doing comedy. Um, People talk about like getting good at 10, like kind of knowing what you're doing at 10 years of experience. So I wasn't even close to that. So yeah, so it led to depression, which is consistent with like party drugs. I got into cocaine, which is super bad for you, and I like
Really
wouldn't
fun
stop,
though.
obviously. Yeah, yeah, yes, and dangerously so. It's actually a good point. I always try to make this point. Drugs are bad, but they are fun, and so like there is a cognitive dissonance that happens when all you hear is drugs are bad. Like, yes, obviously,
But
but
have you tried
fun.
them?
Right,
It's that
exactly,
whole thing when
yes.
you talk
And
when you're a
so,
kid too. It's like, yeah, you say you don't want to listen to hip hop, but you didn't even listen to it. What do you know? You know, you just hear you're saying that because you heard that.
right, right.
Yeah.
And secondhand information is definitely no good. And firsthand information is subjective. So it's like, I've got you, checkmate both ways. I get
Yeah.
to do what I want.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so, um, yeah, cocaine actually plays a big role in how my life was kind of rescued from this pit of despair because it really was major depression. I had like a panic attack, which I'm not overly anxious. I'm not like generally anxious. I'm very specifically anxious. Whatever. Maybe I'm anxious. I I I do like worry about stuff, especially what's going to happen next. How can I be preparing for it? Those types of things. But like, yeah, I never experienced anything like that. But there was a time when I was trying to go to a comedy event and I just had like a panic attack. I didn't know what to do. I was just kind of fracturing mentally. And so, again, this is like the train, blacking out on the train. That's not good. I don't want that in my life. My whole life is based on what stuff do I want in it, you know? And I kind of always had an idea that I would sober up in my 30s,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
clearly this is not a
I'll calm down.
sustainable
I
mode.
have a kid, I have family, then I'll really like take
Yes.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um and so that was kind of in the back of my mind like this probably isn't sustainable. And then I started to see like, oh, might not be sustainable like for now, like right now. And so then I quit buying cocaine, which is an important distinction to make from quit doing cocaine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, well, if somebody else offers me some, then I will do it. But if I have to buy it, I don't have any money because I spent it all. So didn't stop. And eventually, like, there was just one series of days where I did buy more cocaine and I was up for a few days and it was really terrible and like called off of work and just a bad place. If anybody's ever done it, it takes you to really bad places. And so uh it's fun and then it's really not fun. And then you can't go to sleep. And then I was just like distraught. And so I was alone at my apartment and uh I prayed to God, which was kind of weird because um I basically just didn't think God had anything to do with me. Uh so I didn't disbelieve that God existed. It makes a lot of sense uh that he does. I've certainly seen all of that evidence up until that point. Being raised in a Christian home. And yeah, so that point it definitely sticks out to me because of what happens after. But I basically am like, wow, this sucks. And I don't know how to change it. Like here I am and I'm just ashamed. Like I'm a mess. I drink in the morning, like to go to work.
Hmm.
Uh I'm just trying to get obliterated, probably because of this heaping pile of like just anxious, depressive, nothing in my life is giving me meaning or structure or responsibility. Even myself, like the things that I want to do, I can't hold myself to that. I'm unraveling. And so I was like, God, uh, I can't go back to my parents like this. And I don't know how to get back home, but that's where I need to go. And so I don't even know if I asked him for anything. I just was like saying stuff, and I can imagine that was from a place of like, "Can you help me figure this out?" And um, and then I forgot about it and just kept doing drugs. The next day, whatever, just like coping. These were my coping mechanisms for how my life was going, and yeah, so COVID happened. while I was in Chicago, March 23 or sorry, March 2020. And so then I was working at a restaurant. The restaurant shut down. I was doing comedy. I'd kind of like rededicated myself, so that was um, kind of a point of focus, gave me some purpose, and I was like going out drinking with my friends. None of those things could I do anymore. And so I decided to move home for not even move home, like just take a trip home for 2 weeks. It seemed like it was going to be over. They were saying 15 days to flatten the curve or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't know anything about it at the time, and so I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. Everybody's like rioting in Chicago, and I didn't have a gun, so I was like, this is dumb. I don't want to be here anymore, and at least not right now. Totally disregarding the story that I just told about praying to God to get me out of there. So I move home, and then they're like, no, this is actually going to be forever that you're staying home. So I was like, oh, okay, weird. Started planning to move to LA, and I was like, well, maybe like maybe this scene in Chicago isn't like conducive to like my life or my career. Maybe because it was kind of a half measure. Chicago is not predominantly where you go to do stand up. LA and New York were the places at the time. Now it's Austin, Texas. But yeah, so I was like, well, maybe I'll go to LA. Like New York, whatever. It's super expensive. There's really nowhere to live. And LA is at least like the beach and whatever
It's easier
movies,
to be
dreams.
homeless.
Easier to be homeless, indeed.
Yeah.
Um, it's still super expensive. But yeah, I was looking into it. I knew some people maybe from comedy or something. I was, yeah, maybe it'll work out. And then it was really a long time. So I'm just sitting there. Biden is paying my paycheck,
That
and
was great. More like Biden was
it was.
buying my drugs.
Shout out. Yeah.
That's how it was for
And
me, at least.
yeah, no, it's same. And so, I had no responsibilities. My parents let me take the extra room at the house, and I just like lived in there. And they were very hands off through this whole time of me like going away. They probably knew that I was not doing well, and but they didn't like intervene in any way that was overstepping my autonomy, which was very good because I needed it to be my mistake. Like I couldn't have it. I don't think it would have panned out the way it has if they had overstepped and sort of said like, you need to come home. I don't they I was paying for everything myself, so they couldn't really make me. But anyway, uh that they remained that way when I moved home. Very hands off, like we're glad to have you around. It was fun to be back with me. And then through that time, I lived in their house, and they really believe in Jesus. And so, like the house had the Holy Spirit in it. The Bible talks about that a little bit, like the household and the Spirit. And it was so different than what my life was in Chicago. And so that little room was my life still, and it was a mess, and it was just kind of uh, whatever. I don't know. I found places to buy drugs. I wasn't doing cocaine anymore because I didn't know anybody that would sell it to me, and that was really good. That was a helpful uh, what do you call that? Like titration. I needed 0 cocaine in my life, and I was able to get that. And, so I was just smoking weed late at night, like, when nobody was around, because I didn't want to, like, do that in front of my family. That would be weird. That was not something that they stood for within the family values. I remember they let me keep beer in the fridge, um, and, that was, like, definitely an eye opener for me. I was like, "Really?" I was like, No way. I did not think that would be a thing." Um, and so there were just like these weird kind of parameters of my life, and I'd bump up against things that they would not do. Um, and then I started thinking like, why do I need to do this? Like every day I wake up and think, man, I can't wait till everybody goes to sleep so I could smoke weed.
Hmm.
Like that's dumb, like my whole life is surrounding this, I'm useless. And so I got really into like kind of I don't even want to mislabel it. I got into very positive influences uh that were like helping me organize my life.
Just say
So
it. Just say
a
it.
l- no, 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 no. Wait, I'm not even bringing him up.
No, I was gonna say
Uh,
self help.
oh, okay,
That's
self
what it
help.
is.
Yeah,
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 yes. So it's basically because this is what I want to say about self help. Self help can be helpful to a point,
yeah.
and so it was helpful to me to that point, and I was like, "Wow, this is incredible." You know, I couldn't do a push up, and I started working out because Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink and Tim Kennedy were all talking about that, and they're like very authoritative, successful, military leaders and comedy podcast leaders, and like tough guys. And so that was huge for me. Exercise is just fundamentally something that transforms your mind also. So like it really was an area of my life that I'd neglected. I didn't play sports. I smoked cigarettes. There was all this like unhealth physically that led to a lot of the mental like lack of clarity, and not to mention all of the drinking and drugs and whatever. But that was like a starting point. Okay, I can't do a push up, which is really embarrassing. It's still embarrassing, but like couldn't do a push up. Okay, so now I can do one. Now I can do five. Now I can do 100. It's like a metric, kind of a quantitative improvement that was taking place, and then it started to be more about like, okay, like responsibility. I had found Jordan Peterson on the internet because he was popular amongst sort of the right wing, like
Mhm.
comedians and all. He was always a part of that algorithm, and so then I reconnected with him at that point in COVID, and I started going through all of his old videos, and so he has a amazing lecture series on Genesis. And of course, Peterson comes from like a psychological background, um, like cognitive therapy uh, and philosophy, and reading the great books and all these things. So he imported a lot of things that I had never heard connected to the scriptures. And some people will say like that he's wrong about that, but for me, as I'm listening to this Genesis lecture and they're not talking about the perspective that I had become numb to, I really connected with the depth of truth because uh, whether or not it is true literally, it's definitely true symbolically and meaningfully so. Like it's true. I don't know how to describe it's truer than true. And so for me to grow up and hear the stories, I was like, "Oh, whatever. Who cares?" But this time when I'm hearing he's talking about like uh I I I don't really remember the specifics, to be honest. I remember being very impressed by certain like biological similarities between the story and like biological history. Um, and that was fascinating to me because it's like, okay, this is true on so many levels. Because what he was speaking to, what spoke to me from what he was saying is the it's all the Peterson stuff, personal responsibility, spitting in the face of God and saying that you know what to do instead of him. And these were all things that I was kind of coming to the conclusion, hey, I don't think I actually do know how to live life. Like when it comes to everyone did what was right in their own eyes, uh, from Judges, that was my life, like you said. And so then I was finally coming to the end of that, like, dude, I don't think I know what is right.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that was my first encounter with scripture. And I was like, or my re-encounter with scripture. And I was like, whoa, I think this is actually true.
Yeah.
And so I watched a lot of that, um, like all of the Genesis lectures. And then I was thinking about this today. I watched Peterson versus Harris in those debates. There was 3 incredible debates about sort of the culture war that was beginning to be defined at that time, and it was so powerful to me because Harris was arguing for everything that I had stood for and lived out in my own life in such an unsuccessful way. And I understand, like, if anybody cares about those debates and Sam Harris's side of them, I understand that uh, I was not necessarily like the pinnacle of human restraint at that point in my life. Like I was not the poster child of responsibility and um, uh, I don't know, like generally wanting good things for all of society. But that's kind of the point, like that I take away from the flaws in his argument that that religion is to blame for much of what's wrong with the world. I, I I I definitely connected with Peterson's side of that, saying like uh, the Bible is like an instructive source from the Jewish, you know, history that is this library of what we have what we have discovered to be true by revelation or not. I don't know at the time, uh, but either way, like taking responsibility on yourself, not being a slave to your desires, all of these things that Peterson was rooting in Scripture. I was like, yeah, I think that I need all of that. Like I'm so unprepared for life based on just doing what I think is good or want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So, uh yeah, the juxtaposition with my family and their values definitely like kind of broke down the last little vestiges of I think I want to do what I want to do. And of course, even to this day, that's something that I can fall into. I just know that it's wrong. And so it took all of that stuff to bring me to that conclusion. And like you say, I think it's just so widely accepted. Like even now, I like kind of reverted back to mostly Christian community, and uh, like I just had something happen in my life to somebody close to me that was like, whoa! I forget about how bad like everything is out there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't mess with anything like that, and thank God,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so bad and dark and dangerous. And anyway, yeah, it just it just was like shocking to me to see that again.
Yeah. I think I have a lot. I've had a lot of thoughts through what you're talking about. I'm trying to like um, formulate them. Early on, when you're starting into this next stage of life, I was gonna um, highlight even uh, a foundational virtue of our culture, even in our founding document, right? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Um, the desire for liberty, which is a good one, most certainly. The ability to you exercise your free will and to have free will and to have the liberty to pursue things that you think would be beneficial for your life, but for the happiness to be the virtue that informs how you use your liberty for your life. That is my first encounter for of this being really tore down, this stronghold being tore down in my mind, the virtue of happiness being what I am pursuing, was through Peterson. Um, because I had a similar thing too during that COVID time. Well, actually, it was when I moved out first time to my brother. He gave me 12 rules for life, and that was like the whole thing. And
Mm,
and you know that was like kind of the first time I really had it laid out because he does a good job of um the whole entire point is order for chaos, but also recognizing the need for chaos. That's the liberal and conservative argument
yeah.
too. And so even what you're describing with the Sam Harris, I didn't ever listen to those debates, but with the culture war, what we're talking about is, and I don't think this is articulated in a way that is helpful when we talk about liberalism versus conservatism, because as soon as we say that, we associate that with political agendas, and that's not even at all
Yeah.
what the word means. Liberal means like,
Kamala and Trump somehow represent both of those
yeah, yeah,
sides. Like,
yeah. It's
no
like
way.
conservative is like there's a foundation here. Like we started here, and we want to conserve what we started with. We want to stay close to home. And liberalism is like,
Mhm.
yeah, but if we're only just staying at home, there's no progress. And we want to be able to branch out from home, from the foundation. And which is
Yeah.
also exactly what we're talking about, an admirable, necessary, beautiful um, motivation,
Expression of the
expression.
logos.
Yeah, yeah, let's say that. That's cool. Uh, that's
No,
very good.
fulfilling the image bearing quality of every human being. Like it's a
Yeah.
necessary part of being alive. Yeah.
No, truly, yes. And Peterson did a really good job of articulating this, like the whole what even liberal and conservative is, and then expressing how the Bible is a good, exactly what you're talking about when we first started out, like um when you kind of throw off the yoke of tradition, let's say, um in the name of pursuing and establishing building, let's say in the name of building, because that's constructive. So it's like I'm going to go construct something. I'm going to go make something. But I don't really desire a blueprint. I want to even find out my own blueprint too. Like it's just like you make so much work for yourself when you don't have like a real starting
Yeah.
point. You just only have a direction.
Yeah.
And that's the carrot and the stick, like there's no anchor. It's really just, let's just see how high up in the moon, like how close to the moon I can get, how high up
Yeah.
can I go, um, can we build
There's
this
a Phineas
tower?
and Ferb. There's a Phineas and Ferb episode where they build a building that is so tall uh it touches the moon, and then if you know anything about Phineas and Ferb, the whole thing is their sister tries to get them in trouble for what they're doing, and the the moon gets rotated so that the dark side is facing the Earth, which of course that can never happen. But and the building moves with it. Sorry, that's just what you made me think with the moon analogy, building to the moon.
Yeah. That's,
Yeah.
wait, so how does that correlate with your story? I feel like it's a good metaphor.
Yeah. It doesn't.
Oh,
It doesn't correlate.
doesn't correlate. Okay.
um,
Well,
what I wanted to say in
yeah.
correlation was, I found over the years, that God was in the beginning. Uh, we're gonna do an episode on this actually soon, but the importance of like the truth, the significance of the passage of Genesis 1 through 7, what like maybe the whole chapter, whatever. It so powerfully communicates the nature of God from the get go, because that is the central issue to our existence. The reason it's the central issue is because he is fundamentally responsible for it. And it is his nature to desire life. And so all of these things that I desired were kind of willy nilly, like uh, maybe life, maybe not. It was just like it was scattershot. Like if it ends up in life, I got lucky. But having life as the central like goal and desire of God, Jesus comes and talks about like you must be born again, drink living water, be sustained by me. I'm the bread of life. He's all about life, extremely for life. Not,
Abundant life. It
yes,
says, I came so that
exactly.
they may have abundant life.
Exactly. And it's spiritual and it's beautiful and it's all of that, but it's also literal. Like what
Hmm.
you were talking with conservatism and liberalism, both of them are necessary,
Hmm.
but they're both concerned with life. And I found this to be revolutionary to my thinking because I and I never gave evolution a second thought and still don't think that it's like 100% accurate. But chewing the meat and spitting out the bones, the idea that uh there's a lot of bones in this for some people. The idea that across generations the best qualities for survival are preserved,
Hmm.
and the this is kind of just true though, because especially like it's just real. You uh if you have kids before you die, then you were successful in some way in convincing another person that like you are able to sustain life. Even if you pass away right after your kid is conceived, you still were able to propagate your genes. So then uh theoretically, the people who are the most successful in doing this are the ancestors of the people who are alive today, right? And so there's a lot of implications to all of this, but one true thing is that if you're aimed at sustaining life, then your grandchildren uh will bear the same qualities that you had at the time that you were conceiving them, and establishing necessary uh societal structures to hopefully continue uh, the flourishing of life for you down the road for your kids. And so, in every possible way, that's what God is all about. He is for life, for everything. Like, I was driving home today and I saw a bunch of dead, not dead, bare, wintry trees. And I was like, I can't wait for spring and like the buds and then the leaves in the summer, and this place really comes alive. That was the thought I had. I was like, whoa, dude, it's so crazy that any of this stuff is here. Like, why is this not just a dumb rock and I'm not even here to realize it? Like,
Spinny rock.
uh, yeah, it's literally. So it's like, so that's what God stands for, and everything in my life, like, just for me personally, at the time of my, it's very, like, prodigal son sort of archetype, was set on death and destruction, like, everything, and I
Well, sit on
skipped over a bunch of
yourself,
stuff.
which is
Yeah,
death and
sure.
destruction. Yeah.
Yeah, I skipped over a bunch of stuff, but, like, I had a, like, probably 4-month relationship with a girl. It was very serious, and I was not healthy in any way, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, um, and so there was a point at which she thought she might be pregnant, and, I immediately thought, "Well, we're gonna have to get an abortion." And that is so contradictory to, first of all, I just want to say, to the message of life. Like, uh, it, there are obviously heated debates on this topic, but I definitely believe that that is counter to life. Like if you didn't get the abortion, there would be life, and if you do, there won't be. Even if you're saying it's not until it's born or whatever. Um, And so that's one example of this spirit of death that was inside of me that was like, no, that's going to inhibit my ability to do what I want. And so actually, I think I'm for death in this case. And that was remarkable to me. I was just telling this other story to somebody else. I was watching Ricky Gervais' show, Afterlife, and in it, the guy's wife dies and he gets super depressed. So he just starts drinking and smoking weed and trying to like live in oblivion. And then uh, he starts smoking heroin in his joints. I was like, dude, I smoke joints. I could do that.
That's not really
I was
touching it
like,
like it used to, I'm gotta ride the
yeah.
dragon,
I was like,
baby.
that scared me. Like
Yeah.
when I thought that, I was like, oh no, wow, that is a bad idea. I should not do that. And I didn't, but like that idea was like I was like, oh, great idea. And then I came to my senses, but like
Yeah.
that was the type of stuff that was just,
Well, and I want to touch on that too. Is like when you don't have like an anchoring uh, philosophy, let's say, um, then any suggestion is not out of the realm of being adopted.
mhm, yeah,
Um,
very suggestible.
yeah. uh,
And if you want to get into like large scale, it's not even conspiracy theory, but I guess sort of like I kind of do believe that that's where at least the enemy of God wants humanity to be. Like
Hmm.
he wants you to be in a place that's unmoored, unmotivated, demoralized, uh, in the truest of senses for all of those words. It's like he wants you to be in that place where maybe you want death. Doesn't that sound good? Like
Hmm.
it even to the extent that it's like overtly stated to you, like you should probably kill your brother, Cain. That would be a better idea than letting him, embarrass you like that in front of God. It's
Yeah.
like, uh, it's so inconceivable to the healthy and whole person. But when you're in this place of just really like degradation, like you've been degraded as an image bearer of God to the point where these things are. And I don't mean like you start in some beautiful place or whatever, but just like uh everything that's good all of a sudden is no longer what you're aiming at. And it happens sort of gradually and
Hmm.
like I was caught off guard by it.
Yeah, I do want to highlight too. Is like when we talk about, and maybe this will ruffle some feathers. I actually hope it does because that's what the truth does. Um, Going back to even that verse that we used in that atonement episode about what was like what's the point of Jesus' life and death and resurrection is to open their eyes so that they may turn from darkness to light, from the dominion of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among those who have been sanctified by faith in me. And what Jesus says, I think it's really interesting because he, in that often quoted passage of the truth will set you free. If you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine. You'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And he's talking to people who are Jewish. And he says, we're Abraham's descendants. We have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? And Jesus answered them, truly I say to you, everyone who commits sin is a slave of sin. And the slave does not remain in the house forever. The son does not remain forever, or the son does remain forever. So if the son makes you free, you will be free indeed. And he goes into more about what he's talking about. It's like you speak from a place of tradition, pretty much. This is the whole even where
Mhm.
conservatism can get too much.
Yeah.
But I speak things which you have never seen. I speak things I've seen with my father. Therefore, you also do the things which are heard from your father. And they answered him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said to them, if you are Abraham's children, do the deeds of Abraham. But as it is, you are seeking to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from God. This Abraham did not do. You are doing the deeds of your father. They said to him, we were not born of fornication. We have one father, which is God. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and have come from God. For I have not even come on my own initiative, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I'm saying? It's because you cannot hear my word. You are of your father, the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I speak the truth, you do not believe me. Which one of you convicts me of sin? If I speak truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears the words of God. For this reason, you do not hear them, because you are not of God. And so even just that too is like you are of your father, the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning, and when he speaks lies, that's just his native tongue. And you are
Yeah.
his. And even when he says, "I'm a child of God," they pick up stones to kill him because he's like, "You making yourself equal to God by saying you're a son of God." So when he's saying you're a son of the
Yeah.
devil, it's like you are doing exactly what your father does. Whoever your father is,
Yeah.
you are going to grow more into his image.
Yeah. That actually transitions nicely into sort of like the turning point in my story. Uh So I was at home and I was trying to improve myself, and it worked to a point. I quit like uh, buying weed. I did still smoke it,
Yeah,
but it's always the progression.
yeah,
Uh, and I, I don't know. I was generally just like some knucklehead kid, like no responsibilities. So just staying up late, waking up late. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I started working in construction again, But all throughout this time, I'm, like, trying to reconcile the differences between me and my family, and really, like, I might not have been able to put my finger on it at the time, but it was this distinction between what I stood for and what I found out it leads to was, like, death and destruction, and I didn't think that's what I stood for. So I was, like, wide open to, well, what about life and construction and, like, good stuff? Like, I want good stuff in my life, and I was really open to this, but I was still so confused about, like, how it works to get saved or something like that. I don't even like, I didn't really we just did a bunch of episodes on this. Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't think that it was, "Oh, I just have to say something and then it'll happen," or I didn't have any of those sort of, like, like what people would say, I of course, that's not how you actually get saved or whatever. I didn't have any of those, false
Misconceptions.
ideas. Yeah, yeah, illusions. So, not having those illusions, I was like, "How does it work?" Like, it might be for me or it might not be, but I definitely was becoming more convinced, like, okay, I started reading, Romans is what I started in, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm liking this guy, Jesus that Paul's talking about." Like, he clearly stands for things that I want to stand for, that I think are good things. And, Peterson was reintroducing me to a lot of, like, Old Testament scriptures. It's like, I really do think this stuff is real and true, but, like, how does it intersect with me? Because I don't even know if it was I don't know that I had a hard time reconciling with, like, the sin. I definitely was able to be like, "Yeah, that stuff was messed up." Like, I I have no problem raising my hand and saying, "I messed up." Like, that was on me. I need to not keep doing what my idea of right and wrong is. Um, as I had just discovered, okay, I don't know, because this is what I thought was right, and it is clearly wrong. And, I didn't understand how to move forward technically. And so it was a series of discussions with different people in my life that had relationships with Jesus, did believe, that he was their savior. And there's that beautiful quote from We Who Wrestle with God that says, "To believe is much more truly and usefully to commit to."
Mm.
And that was like the point of conversion was like, uh, I just decided, like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to do my ideas anymore. And I think that it was the glow, the allure, the shine of life and goodness. And even, like, I didn't even know how good things could be, uh until I committed to learn how to live my life from Jesus. And started that started with the pretty typical, like, yeah, about all the stuff that I've done, and I don't want to do those things anymore. I want to move forward with you. And there's a, rocky journey of, like, getting rid of bad coping strategies and learning to trust that he really did love me. But I think I could see through scripture his character and the way that he was for people and with people. And I found my community in the Trinity first and foremost. Like God welcomed me in to himself and vice versa, himself into me, and formed a bond that I had never experienced before, where he was for me. And it wasn't based on coercion or compliance. And my parents were very much for me, but I could not see that at the time during my childhood. And so this was, like, really the first time that I think I was um, aware of being loved. And uh, yeah, and that was so, like, crucial uh, to my acceptance of God's gift. of his presence in my life. And so then from that point, it was weird. Like, yeah, I didn't want to do bad stuff anymore. I already didn't want to, but then I really didn't want to, and I wanted to do good things, and so I was like looking into all of that, and then I started telling people like, "Hey, yeah, I think I let Jesus in my heart," or I don't know. I don't even believe in that phrase. I didn't know how to say the things about it. And it was alone. It was me and God in my room, and um, yeah. So I started telling people. They were very excited, and I uh, I mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned it before we started recording or not, but I just in preparation for this, I was thinking about like there's another transition in my life. We're moving to a different house. It's actually back full circle, moving back into the house that I lived in. That's the tiny house on my parents' property, and it's not like a super great achievement or anything, but it is a very nice gift from my parents to let us move in there, and it's just been a lot of like transition. Okay, I'm gonna get a new job, and I'm gotta let my we're trying to figure out a way to start some businesses, and you know, lots of different things are happening. So it's been a little bit like uncertain, and I always get doubtful and like what's going to happen and how what am I doing enough to make sure good things happen to me. But then I was looking back across my story from that point and even before, because if you think back to when I mentioned like the you know binge drinking and uh cocaine bender that I was on, I prayed to God to get me back to my family, to my parents, and it was such a impossible thing that I couldn't conceive of, and he did it. Like, um, you know, COVID wasn't only for me, but one of the positive impacts that COVID had in my life or in the world was my life was rescued from the disastrous, you know, conclusion that I was leading it towards. And um I I think back to that now and I can see that it was a response to my request. Like he loved me and answered me and pulled me out of there. And then I connected with him, uh, and I trusted him. And from that point of trust, my whole life was shifted. Like the priorities, all of a sudden, like I didn't get like saved out of comedy. I still like comedy. I just don't do it anymore. And so now that has not become that's not an ambition of mine, like to be a stand-up comedian. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not something I aspire to be anymore. And so at that point, it was like, now what? Like, I don't really think I can go to college. I don't have like a reason to, other than just like that's what people do for jobs. I don't have a trade that I know how to do. I was just kind of like in the wind. This is great and all, me and God, but I now what? Like, what am I gonna do? And so, um, it's actually like how I met you, James. I'll tell everybody else. But leading up to that, I was seeing my friends. They all had girlfriends. They were engaged or married, and we're Christians, so we get married young. And businesses that they had built from when they got out of high school. And I just like blew all of my money. It wasn't a lot anyway. Blew it all in Chicago and was left with nothing. Now I don't even have my 1 in a billion chance of making it big in show business. So I'm
Yeah.
like completely stranded. And I was like, God, I really want to have like a wife, family, like meaningful relationships. I want to have I want to be established like these other people are. And that was not the next step for me. And so anyway, long story short, I told God uh I would I wanted to like do something for him. So I was like, well, I could go to Bible college. That was something my parents had done. So that, whatever. It was a possibility that I knew about. I could do some sort of like local ministry to tell people about Jesus and what he did for me. That sounds like a good idea. Or I could go to a different country. That's what some Christians do when, like they go on mission trips and whatever. And so I was like, okay, I can do any of those three things. And then there was it's called the 10th Hour Project, and they were traveling through the upstate New York area, and they talked to my friend's mom, and she talked to me, and I was like, "All right, I'll look at their website." And that's literally like the program is 3 months of Bible study akin to Bible college level classes. I was like, "Sweet," and then 2 months or so of like traveling the United States and telling people about Jesus. And then it caps it off with a 3 month foreign mission trip. And I was like, wow, no way. That's crazy. And so that was how I got involved with them. And then, if you remember from James's episode, he was there. And basically, there was a big battle in my heart before I went to like, okay, now I'm just going to throw away another 8 months of my life. Like, I've already blown my savings in Chicago. I am years behind all these people that I know, starting businesses and, buying houses and getting married, all these things. I was like, it doesn't seem like that gets me any closer to my goal of what I want to do. But then I was like, wait, I don't wanna do what I wanna do, It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I just did that, so, still wrestled and then finally decided to go.
Hmm.
And then I met James, that was fun. I met, David, who's one of my good friends, from South Carolina, and a bunch of other people. I love you guys too. And most importantly, I met my wife there, and that was another answer to a deep desire in me that I thought I was just kind of like giving up. Like I'd get married someday, but I was pushing it off another 8 months. Like, oh my gosh, like I want it now, but I can't say no to this opportunity. So I'm going to do it, but I'm letting go of what I want to happen. And it was a really cool example of the way that God like leads me and cares for me and gives to me things that are good for me, and that like rewards the desire for life and love and happiness and good things in my life. And so, yeah, that was not the only thing, but obviously a very big thing in my life
Yeah.
that I gained out of that program. And then, yeah, sequentially from there, like obviously we have a kid, so that came out of that, and he is a great blessing and incredible gift. I have many relationships with people through that program, and then through my internship and later year spent at a church in South Carolina, um, and all throughout this, I've grown and learned, and like the person I am today is a gift from God. Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know if you have anything to say. I had a Dallas Willard quote that I wanted to bring up uh, too, and then we can close.
Yeah, I wanted to, I mean, just because we both bring up 10th hour and like, what the heck is that even about? I just want to go to the scripture because I think it's so crucial too. Um, I'm not going to go into the whole story. It's a story about when two of the first disciples come to Jesus. Um, and when Jesus, the two disciples, okay, I'll tell a little bit of the story. Two of the disciples that started following Jesus were disciples of John the Baptist, who John the Baptist was proclaiming, this guy coming who's going to do, he's the guy. The guy is coming. I'm not the guy. I'm the one who's pointing to the guy, preparing the way for the guy. And when the guy finally does come, two of his disciples have actually been listening this whole time. Like, what? And then they hear John say, "Behold, the Lamb of God who's going to take away the world's sins." Like, that's the guy. And two of the disciples of John start to just like, they drop it. And you're like, all right, yeah, that's the guy. I'm dropping everything. I'm going to go follow this guy. And they're literally walking down the road with him. And Jesus turns to them. And these are the first words recorded in the Gospel of John that Jesus says. He asks the question, "What do you seek?" Um, which I think that's really at the heart of everyone's life. What do you seek? And even in what you're describing too, is like um, we all are seeking um, good things. We're all seeking life. We're all seeking peace. We're all seeking rest. Um, it's just we all have our own ideas of how to obtain what we are seeking. Um, and the fact that Jesus actually wants us to have what we all seek, which is life and rest, it's just that it's found in Him, you know. And so uh, there's another, I forget which psalm it says, but it says He gives you the desires of the heart of those who delight in Him. Um,
Mhm.
and there's a beautiful thing about that too. I think even in your story of going to 10th hour and like you had this desire in your heart, like I want a wife, I want to establish, and like, and then recognizing like, but ultimately, I know it's only you who could give me good things. I can't obtain good things for myself. If I do, I'm gonna butcher
Yeah.
it and blow it up. So,
Yeah.
um, but
Actually, just while you're there, when I was sort of like, uh, just at the point of like, uh, telling my wife now that I thought that this was maybe like that we could have a relationship and that was what I wanted. I don't know why I said that's so weird, but like when I told her I liked her, uh, it took a long time, like 2 weeks of deep existential crisis, and this was partially because like, uh just like talking to girls is hard to do sometimes, like especially if you really care about the outcome. Like I really thought that I was going to marry her, which is like kind of aggressive, but it worked out.
yeah,
Um and so but I was just wrestling with it because I couldn't trust my desires.
mm,
Like if I know anything about me, it's that I want bad things. And that was sort of like something I had internalized because of so many like bad consequences from my desires. And so that was that was a huge moment at the end of that 2 week period. It really was 2 weeks. The end of it, I read that verse in my whatever morning reading time, and uh and it just stood out to me, and I finally read it that way. I'd read it before, but I read it like he gives you the desires of your heart. Like like he doesn't just give you the things that you desire, but that those desires are placed within you by him.
hmm
And this is not true of me before I trusted him because I rejected all of the things that he was saying. I thought that God stood between me and life, liberty, and happiness.
hmm
But then when I discovered that it was in him that life and liberty and happiness were found, kind of appropriating
yeah, yeah,
American
yeah,
language
yeah,
there, uh, but like the true sense of those words were found in him.
hmm
That was confirmed in that scripture to me that day. And I was like, oh, and so I asked her that
yeah.
day.
And even the fact that those who delight in Him, like the more you delight in God, the more
Yeah,
your desires
exactly.
actually start to change. You know,
Yeah.
where I'm finding delight is no longer in my own desires. I'm finding my delight in Him, and then I actually start to
Yes.
desire Him and all that He stands for. um,
Yeah. I noticed at one point in that 8-month time frame that my survival instinct had changed. I used to think that I knew what would like sustain me, and so I would act in a certain way to achieve those things, and like defend myself. And I was a like a major liar from the pornography and just to everything that I disagreed with my parents on. I was like, well, then I'm just not going to talk about it, and I'll
mm,
do it anyway. And so when you were talking about like the 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 father of lies, he's your father. I was like, yeah, like I was exactly like him, and that is scary and dark thing to realize. But then my survival instincts kicked in on the other side with the Holy Spirit inside of me guiding and directing me. But then I was in total agreement. I was like, I don't want to lie. I remember we would travel a lot, and so we were in the hotels, and it was really annoying because one hotel would have a good washcloth, and the next hotel would have like a bad one, and I wanted to just steal a good one, and I was like, no. I don't steal. I don't think stealing's a good idea. Like, I don't know why. Like,
Yeah.
like I couldn't even think of like a good argument why I shouldn't just take this washcloth. But I was like, you know what? For once in my life, I'm not gonna do a bad thing because I can get away with it. It's like, I'm just gonna do the what I think is the right thing. It's a Dallas Willard. Do what I think is the right thing and trust God with the consequences. Like, no big deal, you know? And I feel great. Like I'm not somebody who steals stuff. But
Today.
that just my survival instincts shifting to, hey, actually, no, I want to do things that are really like good because that helps me remain in him and be alive and not be ashamed and corrupted.
Yeah, I think even in that verse too, the desires of the heart. I think I don't know if that's a thread you can actually exegete from the passage, but it says in Ecclesiastes that He's put eternity in their heart, and there's like a heart,
Yeah.
like a deepest part of you actually desires this, and I think that can get clouded. Like, well, my flesh wants this, like I really love orgasms, so,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
but my heart actually really wants love,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
maybe there's a distinction you can make there, but nonetheless, even in the story, when Jesus asked him, "What do you seek?" they say to him, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "we want to see where you're staying." And he says, "Come and you will see." So they came and saw where he was staying, and they stayed with him that day, for it was about the 10th hour. And so that's the whole thing. But just even that whole thing too is like Jesus saying, like, "Come and you will see what you seek." Uh, and so I don't know. I think that's a good place to even land the plane a little bit. And I'd let you finish your thought too, but just that Jesus is asking us all that question, like, what do you seek? Um,
Yeah.
that's a really important question.
Yeah. Um, I I think that significantly connects back to Genesis, where Eve looks at the fruit. She sees the fruit, that it is good to eat and desirable. Um, and I don't think that any of those things are untrue. But she that's what she's seeking. And she's not seeking God, like, or Jesus in this case, but that which is the materialization of God in our world. Um, and uh yeah, and so it really is core and central to the biblical narrative, even more than like the message, the point or something. To the extent that I'm qualified to sum it up, it's like he is where life is found, and to seek him is to seek well. Um, I was thinking about grace today and came across this quote from Dallas Willard. He says that grace itself is God interacting in our lives. And I think this is always the case with Willard. I'm pausing here because it's really so richly dense. It's not impenetrable language, but the richness of it. Like he's defining grace as something remarkable here. Grace is itself God interacting in our lives. And so like all these different things that I was grateful for are examples of God's grace in my life. And let alone, you know, um even just allowing me to pursue what I thought was good for me, to come to the end of that and be like, wow, that was bad for me. I do not like that. That is also, I think, God interacting in a way in my life. He said, grace is interactive relationship, the very place of knowledge of God. You grow in the grace and the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ as your life is increasingly dominated by interactive relationship to Christ in everything. And he says, that's what it means to grow in spiritual and moral maturity. And yeah, I definitely have found that. That was what I was seeking at that point that I came across the Bible and Jesus again in a new state of mind, an open and receptive place, uh, and a place where I was seeking to grow spiritually and morally. And Uh, yeah. So anyway, I thought that that was rather profound from Mr. Dallas Willard, and maybe like an impactful way to phrase the definition of grace. I think a lot of people think of it as something like, I don't know, like that's what God gives to you, or uh, yeah, like it's something God gives to you, but it is Himself that He gives to you,
Mm,
and that is a significant distinction.
yeah. I, we kind of talked about earlier that like if we were to like place a label on what worldview we would be able to gain insight on from your life would
Mm,
be hedonism.
yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I love this train of thought that we're on here too because it's important. There's two verses that come to mind right now in my mind. It's Ecclesiastes 2:24 and 25. There's nothing better for a man than to eat and drink and tell himself that his labor is good. This also I have seen that it is from the hand of God. For who can eat and who can have enjoyment without God? Um,
Mm,
that's one element,
yeah.
right? And the other element too is it was in Psalm 17. Um, he's talking about the people of the world. He says the men with from men of the world. He's praying to God, ask Him to deliver him from men of the world whose portion is in this life, whose belly you fill with your treasure. I find that very interesting. You know, when you're talking about grace and God interacting in your life, like God shows grace to all of mankind. The fact that any of us can have any enjoyment, um,
Mm,
and even the enjoying of things in this world are. It says this: you fill their bellies with your treasure. Like these are all treasures from God. Sex is a treasure from God. Drugs, the euphoria that comes from them is a treasure from God. Um, and there's those who like just like yeah, I would love to just have all these treasures, and I don't want God. Like the
hmm.
treasures themselves are what satisfy me. And there's others who recognize that, like, no, I actually have a deeper desire in my heart. I have eternity in my heart. Um,
Yeah.
and David, he says this, as for me, uh, I shall behold your face in righteousness. I will be satisfied with your likeness when I awake.
Hmm.
That like that's the ultimate thing that we all are desiring is to be in the likeness of God, to the God's glory. Really, that's what we all desire.
Yeah.
But just to say that too, like that what do you seek? When you really sit with that question, it's like kind of asking like, okay, why do I want to smoke weed? Well, because I want to feel good. Why do I want to feel good? That type of thing. Like at the end of it,
Yeah.
is actually because you want God and His glory and all
Hmm.
that entails. um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think that I definitely, like we've talked about it, maybe ad nauseum at this point, but I just had, I really believed that, like, and was committed to, like, that quote, this idea that I was going to be able to uh, find my own, I was able to, going to be able to find those delightful, pleasurable things and take them for myself in my own sort of scheme for life.
mhm.
And it was making me think of, I'm watching this series on nutrition, and the guy was talking about sugars and how, like, uh, you can have sugar in your diet, um, and even like supplementing. He was talking about nutrient supplements too. Like it's good to have the nutrients in pill form because you don't get them in regular food form in a typical diet. Um, but it's actually better to eat the food itself, like that would give you the nutrient, because, and he didn't quite have like a ton of science to back it up. He's just like, it's we don't know how to quantify the benefit of taking the whole food in the sort of delivery method that it was, that it has. And so his example was like sugar. It has a complex matrix of fiber and sugar and all of this, and water in fruit. And so, like, to eat the fruit gives you the vitamins and the sugar and the fiber in sort of like perfect proportion, you know, as it's designed to be. And I think that when it comes to all the things that you listed as like good things, obviously the pleasure that you get from drugs is hacking your dopamine system. And it really like it's kind of perfect for somebody who doesn't have meaning or purpose in their life. I had no community. So what was my purpose? To fulfill my own me, like my
Hmm.
desires. And there was no mediating relationship there. And so without that, I was adrift in a sea of meaninglessness. And
Vanity of
because of that,
vanities.
yeah, yes. And because of that, I was seeking uh, dopamine. Nothing in my life was giving it to me. And so I was finding it in all these different ways. But like just extracting that sort of neuronutrient, it's not really that, but like to fit with the metaphor, I'm losing the benefit of the complex matrix of relationship
Mm.
and social responsibility and all forms of responsibility. So like sex comes within the covenant of marriage in Christian theology. That's not just because God says so. It's because that is the place that pleasure and desire can ultimately be realized and fulfilled. And outside of that, it can't be. And it requires the lifelong covenant to provide that matrix for you to benefit from that pleasure that God has built into reality.
Yeah, it's kind of even like
And of
that
course,
that thing you're talking about with the education system too, the compartmentalizing, like, the history, and
yeah,
not recognize that these are all like blending together actually. Like, so sex, like when you
yes,
just compartmentalize like sex and marriage, as if these things don't go hand in hand, or sex, marriage, and even your work life, or that's just
yes.
how life is. Like, these are all overlapping. It's a garden.
Yeah, we talked about holiness the other day and how it has its or wholeness has its root in that word. And so it's like
Hmm.
holy and whole go together. And I think that's really important to remember that because
And
when
healthy.
we think about holiness, yeah, yes. And when we think about those things, they like, I don't think many people connect the dots between health and wholeness and holiness. Holiness is like weird piety, like set apart, but in a weird kind of culty
And it
way.
can even be like
W-
anti-hedonism, like deny myself pleasure and cut myself for
Yes.
God's attention.
And so like obviously somebody that thinks that pleasure is a good thing, I want to say like, yes, you're right. But like there is a healthy way to go about this. And yeah, and I found that to be true. Like not only in marriage, but in responsibility of all kinds. Even this transition to uh a new location for my family will also be a transition to where I'm going to try to start a couple businesses and do some freelance work and different things like that, where I'm trying to take that responsibility on myself because I think I will just function better as a person. I will be healthier, more whole
Mm.
if I take that responsibility on. And it's obviously like very Petersonian, but like really taking on that responsibility in my life of being a husband, being a father, being a
Mhm.
provider, these things have greatly uh, enlivened me.
Yeah.
Like I've told you before, the moment that I knew I was going to be a dad was this incredible shift. Like the moment is a bit exaggerating, but like as I was realizing this, I was like, okay, everything about my life has to be different. And I was so motivated to change, like selflessly. I was like, what is happening? Like this isn't even, this is not like me.
Yeah.
But it was like me
And how
under the
even
condition of being a father.
and even to connect, like, how sex can lead to, like, in the proper context, leads you to be more selfless than selfish.
Yes.
Like, that's
Yes.
crazy to think about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that we can end here, but like I think that just reinforces the point about God is for life. And I don't just mean like procreation but in all forms. this
Mhm.
this life is life abundant, and it's life in me, it's life in my wife, it's literally life in my son. Like what how
Yeah.
like that is so incredible. And I know it's just a simple biological process, but like wow.
Yeah.
And what a heavy responsibility that is just this delightful, joyous, like it's really hard. I have to change diapers and I don't sleep well anymore. And everything is about how easy is it going to be to get the baby to sleep in that environment. Like my social life is different. Anything I want to do, I can't do because of my son. I have to account for him in every possible way.
Yeah.
And it is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. And yeah, and I think it just stems from that fundamental, like, God is for life and goodness and all of these amazing things, and against death and destruction and like evil.
Mhm.
And the when you I think I said it well before, but just that I really believe that God stood between me and life. And then I learned that he was the life. And so that there he was never trying to block me from anything,
Mhm.
just invite me into everything. And so
Yeah.
yeah, when I finally had that revealed to me, I was I deeply desired for that to be the case and have found it to be true.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is that's Eden literally means pleasure. That's what Eden means. So we're talking about, you know, in the beginning, they were in the Garden of Eden.
Mhm.
It's like they were living in perfect pleasure, complete, whole, abounding pleasure. But as when the suggestion was given to them that God's holding back, He's actually in your way from experiencing the fullness of pleasure. It's that lie that unraveled everything, you know? Um, and that's the whole thing of even the creation, fall, redemption. Like that's the pattern of life. That's a pattern of even beautiful orchestras. Like there's like this beautiful harmony, and then you
Mhm.
kind of get like a dissonance and like it's getting kind of, and then the resolve is like even better than the creation element too. And that's the gospel too. And even what you're talking about when you're talking when you went back to your parents and like uh, the contrast of blacking out on the train, waking up in South Side Chicago, to the environment in your parents' household was like it. It was like so much more beautiful because of you being able to experience the fall,
Yeah.
you know, and so
Yeah.
Felix culpa. That's what Saint Augustine talked about. Fortunate fall. Um,
Mm.
yeah, man, that's beautiful. Yeah, dude. Thank you for sharing, man. Thank you for it's funny too hearing like how you're talking about like I don't know if we should do an episode talking about my story, you know, a lot less intellectual. And, uh, yeah, no, I'm glad that we did this. I'm glad a lot of insightful things I think were
Yeah.
harvested. So
I'm glad you think so. I was happy to look back and see a lot of really good things that God has done for me. And I'm filled with gratitude. So that's a good thing. I
yeah,
like that. And yeah, I hope everybody else enjoyed.
yeah.